I'm Adam.
I'm Keith, and this is Unfiltered Founders. And we're almost out of beer.
We are. Time for another one.
First talking point is we got into this really over this, talking about business. One of the things that you and I absolutely just love doing is talking about business ideas. We like drinking beers, right?
A little bit.
A little bit. And so I think it's about having fun, but more than anything, we're obviously launching a business to help people that want to be entrepreneurs or start their own business or find, other ways to make income. Help them plan those businesses, help them get a solid start, and ultimately save them time and money, right, is really the goal. Trying to help people.
And help them avoid a lot of the mistakes that we've made. I mean, we've both been involved in a lot of different businesses, whether it's starting a business or jumping partway through, and we make mistakes.
Oh yeah, and we've had some successes, right? I mean, it's but I think I'm a coach at heart, and I think this is an opportunity for me to take some of the coaching that I do in other areas of my life and start applying it to business. And part of coaching, part of everything, is failure, most certainly, right? And I think that's a huge component that goes into what we wanted to do, and what this is all about. And so this is really about two guys getting together, drinking beers, and talking business, right? Talking shop and talking about the history that we've had together. And
it all started with coaching. Like we met each other. Keith was the first coach ever for my younger son in hockey. And when he asked if anybody else wanted to help coach, I was like, yeah, sure. So we've been coaching together now for...
Well, both our sons are graduating this year, right? So that's
like 13 years.
Yeah, 13 years.
We've been coaching together in one form or another.
So I think that this is an exciting opportunity to do that, and this is a fun part of it, right? This is a fun part of a new business that we're starting. This is a fun part of a new business that we're starting.
Yeah, and that's it. It really does need to be something you enjoy. When you're starting something new, it should be something that you enjoy, something that you like doing, and this is something that we really love doing, is starting new things.
Yep. So in that vein of starting new things, let's get into really what is our first episode, right? Most businesses start with some sort of gut feeling, right? We're going to talk in another episode about how most businesses may start over a couple beers, right? But a lot of businesses start over having a gut feeling, right? Something that you're passionate about, something an idea that comes to you, right? But then ultimately
you think is going to work.
That you think is going to work, right?
Yeah, I think there's legs, or there's traction to this concept.
Yep.
And what we're going to talk about today is whether or not that gut feeling is something you should trust, and some of the lessons that we've learned from both trusting our gut feelings and ignoring our gut feelings.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise. I think, I've started obviously several businesses. We've started now several businesses together, and there's a lot of noise that is around you anytime you get into the business world. Everybody has an opinion, right? And it's, one of those old adages is, trust your gut. But there's a time and place for that. There's a balance for that. And most certainly we have to talk about that balance because we're looking to coach and help others, right? And so there's time to trust your gut. There's times to bring in an expert and bring in some expertise.
Yeah, and just because you have experience with your gut and you that, like, for me, my gut is usually right, but when it's wrong, it can be really wrong.
Yep.
So just because I'm usually right when I trust my gut doesn't mean I ignore the expert. And that's kind of where I wanted to start, is that part of me that didn't want to listen because my gut was telling me for sure I was right. And the person that I brought in to help me pretty much told me I was wrong. And I ended up not listening to them, and it ended up kind of going the wrong way. And I started a business a number of years ago. I started a business that was basically about creating logotypes for like small businesses in my area. And as a graphic designer, I was like, this is something I know. And, I'm really good at listening to you and reflecting back to you what you're saying and finding a way to make that resonate to a wider audience. Like that's something that I've always been good at. And I knew I could do this. And I brought in somebody on the business side because I'm a creative. I'm not great at numbers and figures. I didn't take a math class since high school. You don't need those when you get a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree.
I needed those. I needed the math class. Yeah, I'm the math side of life. Yeah,
that's it. So I brought in a Keith, and the Keith person said, if you're going to do this, you need to have X amount kind of put aside. And I'm like, I have the computer. I have all of this. And I knew I could make it work because I just needed that one person.
Yep.
And what the person I brought in knew that I didn't know is that no matter what you think, it always costs you something to get that person, whether it's just gas to get to a meeting or it's paying for lunch or whatever it is, there is some expense to your efforts. And I had completely convinced myself that there wasn't. And my business never got off the ground because I disregarded that one piece of advice. I took a lot of the advice that she gave me, but that one piece of advice, which was, all right, you probably need to have $10,000 just put aside for this, that I didn't have because I was basically spending all my money on fun stuff and, not on this one thing. So that business never got going. I mean, it's still something I do on the side, as you know, but something that could have been a really big growth business for me never went anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, so I think, and I've talked to you a little bit about my experiences, starting Kremmer's, right, institutional food service company, which didn't start that way by any means, but I remember my uncle vividly coming in and having his list on day 2, and he was a serial entrepreneur, very much like me, and had started a bunch of businesses. And he came in, and funny enough, it was all about structure. Right. It was, hey, just be careful with accounting, be careful with your legal, right? All these little things. And I think it's interesting, right? I reflect on that. And that was a really impactful conversation. One that most certainly, I think everybody who starts a business, they kind of look back on it. They're like, man, I really should have taken some time to get that part right. And so, I mean, do you feel, and I think that's kind of where I'm settling in, right? Where do you trust your gut? Where do you trust your instincts? When it comes to the passion part of it, right? For you, it would have been the logo design and everything else. Go. That's yours, right? That's all yours. But then there's the entire other part that business is business. At the end of the day, there's two ways to slice it, right? There's taxes, there's insurance, there's expenses, there's real world things.
There's rungs on the ladder.
Right. And
there's
they just have to
on the
be
ladder.
Right. And taking those pieces of advice, I mean, that's almost where I would guide anybody that's looking to start a business. Go to your experts, get a good accountant early on. It's worth the money. You sit there and you're like, oh, I don't have $50 or $100 or $200 to meet with the accountant. I would say spend that money on the accountant. Right. And I think that's, and I do, I look back on it. I look back at my first year, outright, and we got to the end of the year and we almost had we didn't do a ton of business in year 1. But I had a box of paper of receipts and all kinds of shit, right? And I got
this was a long time ago.
This was a long time ago. Yeah, it's 20 years ago.
For those of you who think everything's digital,
but this was 20 years ago. Yeah, it was 20 years ago, and I look back at that, and it's you know, my uncle, he tried to prevent some chaos, right? It prevents chaos so that it allows you to trust your gut. It allows you to focus on your passions.
Okay, so in both of these cases, so even though my business never really, this particular business never really took off, I don't consider that to be me fucking up. Like,
no,
it's not.
No,
like it's a mistake.
Yep.
Right. And there have been times where I have like really screwed the pooch um, and done things that cost me money.
Yep.
Or made me miss an opportunity. And that's not necessarily trusting my gut or not trusting my gut. That's something else. That's sometimes you're not familiar with the situation and you don't have a gut instinct.
Yep.
Right. So have you had situations like that, and like in that kind of instance where your gut gut's basically saying like, dumbass, you don't know what you're doing?
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation?
So, I mean, I do. I've learned to ask for help, right? I've learned to ask for help. And I think that, you know, from my background, I have a lot of people. I've hopped around industries, right? I am a serial entrepreneur. So I have a food service company, right? I own an ice rink. We're working on a business coaching business, right? I'm working on a logistics company. There's no way for me to claim that I'm an industry expert in all of those things.
Yeah.
Right? Like there just isn't. I'm not an industry expert in all of those things. What I do know is how to structure a business properly now, right? Because I learned, you know, through the advice of others in the hard way, and I have 20 years of experience and I've started multiple businesses. So I rely on, now I know, like, I have a process to how we structure things and how we get going, right? And how we start them. But when it comes to then somebody coming to me, a lot of times now I'm tapping into somebody else's passion, right? I'm tapping into something that somebody else is passionate about, or I'm helping somebody else. And that's the part that I'm bringing to the table. But then I have to inform myself. I can't run a company on something that I don't know. And so I've learned that when I'm looking at it, I may think that something is a really good idea, but if I don't have, I mean, I grew up playing the game of hockey, so an ice rink is easy in theory, but that's the coaching side, right? That's the team side. That's the programming side. I've been doing that for a long time, but I don't know shit about chillers and Zambonis and mechanical and all that. So
keeping the lights on,
right? Keeping the lights on, right? So you know, you gotta know when you're gonna need to rely on somebody else, and I think that it's about owning who you are, and you know, what do I look across all of the different businesses? What do I bring to the table? I bring that structure element. I bring a coaching element, right, to everything that I do. But when it comes to, you know, I'll just use the ice rink as an example. I mean, it's chiller. Like, this is a massive piece of equipment that's so specialized that normal HVAC, normal chiller guys can't even touch it, right? Like, they're the dentist looking at a heart type deal, and that's how it's been compared to me. So you have to be smart enough to not fuck around with that shit, and you have to be smart enough to say, hey, look, I'm not that guy. That doesn't mean that you can't be the business owner. That doesn't mean that you can't be the leader, right? It actually makes you a better leader when you can rely on somebody else.
Your businesses, most of the businesses that you've done, have really been a team. Like, you have a group of people that you're working with.
Yep.
As a creative professional, I am my team. But that doesn't mean that I'm on my own and I'm doing everything by myself. I can surround myself with people like you're talking about, where I need an accountant, I need an office manager, right? And that office manager doesn't need to be a full-time person, and it can be me in a different hat. But that's a role outside of the traditional, like, I'm sitting at my computer doing art or creating something or writing books, which is what I do primarily now. Even inside of that, I have an agent who I send my manuscripts to. I have a separate booking agent to help me book school visits. So I have built a team around myself so that even though I'm in my, you know, locked in the basement, chained to the wall, writing books, I'm not doing it by myself. And like, Keith has been a big help for me, even on that side, because we talk about things. So bringing those outside people into my team for areas where I don't have that gut feeling, where I don't know what to do. Like, my gut, here you go. My first ever manuscript that I sold. I sent it off. Writing books is kind of a weird thing. You send your manuscripts out and then you don't hear anything for a very long time. So I sent it off and I forgot about it. And I was at a bachelor party in Boston. We flew from Philadelphia to Boston, and we started drinking in the morning at the airport. And by 5 o'clock that night, we'd been drinking for 7 hours, 8 hours at a bachelor party. And we were at dinner, really nice seafood dinner. And my phone rang with an unknown New York number on a Friday night at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
So what do? You answer the phone. I said, "Hi, this is Adam." And the person on the other end said a whole bunch of stuff. And all I heard was, "We'd like to buy your manuscript." And what my gut told me was, just say yes. So I said yes. And we talked for a little while longer, and then I called my wife. So I wanted to tell her I sold my manuscript. And she said, "For how much?" I said, "I don't know."
There it is.
And she said, "To who?" And I said, "I don't know." I listened to my gut. And my gut just said, say yes. So Monday, after we went skiing, it was a skiing bachelor party. After that, on Monday, I had to call back. "Hi, this is Adam." Probably some questions I should have asked. And if I did, just so you know, I was at a bachelor party. So now I'm telling somebody who wants to pay me money that I was drunk when they called me the first time. I mean, like, how many mistakes can I freaking make in one series of things?
Quite a few, actually,
is
the answer.
Right? And they still bought my manuscript, and it's still like it's my best-selling book. But I mean, mistake after mistake after mistake right there. I could have sent that to voicemail and handled it at a much better time.
Yep.
But my gut was saying, "Ooh, this could be something fun." Yeah. And then when I answered, it was like, "You were right. You were right."
Go Team Adam. Go Team Adam. So in that vein, how did that work out, actually? So
yeah, well, look, I stumbled up the stairs on that one, but it's not always a good direction to go.
Yeah. No, and I think, I mean, at its core, I think that if anything, looking at this, this topic, you have to just understand what you're passionate about. And when you're in your passion moment, when you're in your passion, when you're working within your passion, trust your gut. But then you also have to recognize, right, what you're not passionate about. And there's a whole lot of business, no matter what business you're in, right? Like, we got a guy videographing right now, and you're doing books and like the whole deal. There's a whole lot of business, no matter what business you're in, that isn't the passion part. It's just the nature of doing business, right?
And
listen to the people when they say structure that shit. Like, structure it. It does save you so much.
Even if you're passionate about something, you also, I have to caution that passion has to be tempered, right? I am passionate about art, but there are people that are so much better than me at creating art.
Yep.
I know what I can do. I know what my limitations are, but that's 50 some years of learning those guardrails. So you have to kind of look at your passion. You have to feel your passion. You have to make sure that you stay within your abilities. Like, I know I can do math. I went all the way up to like the good math classes and ninth grade, right? Like, I was taking algebra 2 and calculus stuff in ninth grade, and then I was like, I hate this.
Yeah.
Luckily, I didn't have to do it anymore, but I can do math. It's just I'm not passionate about it, right? So I'm missing passion on that.
Yeah.
I love painting, but I suck at painting. So there's something I'm passionate about, but I'm not really good at. Right? Skill-wise. Now, I could devote a whole lot of time to developing those skills. But if we're talking about a business, is it better to develop those skills, or is it better to find, say, a videographer who knows what they're doing, who can handle that piece of it for you and push you forward faster?
I think, I mean, it's cost analysis, right? That's where you have to sit there and you have to weigh.
Yeah,
it's not math though, right? I mean, it's pros and cons, and I think you do have to weigh the costs, and it's about, for me, don't get caught up in doing it quick. I can tell you that, right? I mean, just don't get caught up in doing it quick. There is nothing quick. I've been, starting businesses now for 20 plus years. There is no quick business. There is no quick, easy business. There's nothing that you can just snap your fingers and launch. And so, you have to look at, again, at the end of the day, if you're starting a business, you have to have some sort of core skill set. And God bless the CPAs, because they get the structure skill set, right? Like, God bless them. They start the accounting firms, right? They get the advantage on that one, right? It's pretty straightforward. But you have some sort of skill set that you're looking around. You're starting a nail salon, right? You're good at nails, right? Somebody that's good at nails, right? You look at that, okay? But that doesn't mean that you want to expand to hair, right? And you don't rush into that, right? If you want to have more than a nail salon, then you better go get hairstylists and you better go get those people. Otherwise, just start with nails, right? Just start with nails. And for like you're a children's book author, right? Like, you don't need to illustrate your own books. You can, right? But right, what are you good at in terms of the writing? The writing process. It's the actual writing, right? Not the illustrating per se.
Yeah, and it falls into that division. Like, we have a natural rapport because the things that you're passionate about and you're good at complement the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I'm good at. So we make a good team together like that. And like, that's another kind of good thing. To circle back to the first part of what you said, where you don't want to jump into things, that's something that we're going to talk about in our next
it is
our next beers.
But
so
next time we're going to talk about starting a lot of ideas. We said this start right here, and we've had an unbelievable amount of ideas that have started over beers and drinks. And I think it's that this next episode we're going to get into that, because that's where a lot of it, you have that aha moment. I have this idea, right? And we want to kind of sort out for everybody how you differentiate which idea you actually run with and which ideas you just got to say, that was last night.
Sometimes, and we'll repeat this again, but the beer goggles count for businesses as well.
Yes, they do. So I think this has been a great first start for us, right? I feel good about it. We're excited to do more of these. We have a new business ourselves, hatchandground.com. Please check us out. There's tons of resources. If you're thinking about starting a business, there's tons of resources on there for you to go and look at and engage with us directly. Everything from ebooks to personal coaching sessions, right? The whole nine. We're really passionate about taking our experience, both good and bad, wins and losses, and sharing them with everybody that's out there.
I'm trying to help people avoid the mistakes that we've made, or at the very least utilize what we've learned from those mistakes so that you can make new and different mistakes. Because we're going to make mistakes. Like, that's just the way that it is. When you're starting a business, things go wrong. Some things are out of your control. So we want to help alleviate that, but we also want to give you the tools to be able to address it when it happens. So as part of our series here, like, comment below if there's something you want to hear us talk about. Let us know in the comments.
Beers you want us to try.
Beers you want us
to try. Yeah, well,
if you want us to sponsor something other than a local hockey team, we're happy to do that too. We realize the Flyers aren't really good this year, but you can't just like things when they're good. Sometimes you got to support them when they're struggling.
But this has been a fun first one. Like I said, like us, subscribe, hatchandground.com. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.
We're going to be unfiltered founders, so fucking get used to it.